everybody, and welcome back to the Triforce podcast. Yes, that's right.
We're back. Oh,
with me
we're back.
And Pyrion Flax.
Hello.
And Sips.
Why me last? I was talking first.
Yeah, how dare you?
Sips. Sorry. So this week, okay.
Yeah.
All I've been doing
Right.
is playing Crusader Kings 3.
Yeah.
Reading about the Crusades.
Yeah.
Right.
And thinking about the Crusades. And so one thing I thought interesting, which I was just thinking about literally 5 minutes ago, was each of these like old houses, old dynasties, has this motto. Okay?
Right.
And some of them are really stupid. But obviously it's all the classic stuff in Latin. Like, you know, I'm sure your school had a Latin bit of text around it. That says like, behave and prosper or something like that, you know, or, you know, knowledge is power. I don't know, classic stuff like that.
Yeah.
But some of these house dynasties are really weird. One of them, I noticed, I wrote two of them down. One of them was, break your sword upon our pleasure.
Right.
Jesus.
What does that mean? Does that mean like my dick is so fucking hard that I'm gonna fucking deflect your sword with it?
I'm not sure it means that, but maybe that's not what they had in mind at the time when they were like, hey, Lenny, we're going to need a house motto here. You got any ideas? And then Lenny just comes in obsessed with his dick and everything dick related. And, you know, maybe it would have been a little bit more sort of like my dick for your pleasure, you know, would have been the motto.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I don't think they would have had like
because it's bad translation. Do you think?
Yeah,
it's because it was probably like I think originally in Spanish or something.
Our school motto was "Justitia enim Harambe," which means
Harambe.
It means justice for Harambe.
right. That's a really good motto, actually.
It was.
So the original, so the one the other one I got when I picked a house for some, I think it might be randomly generated, but it was irritate not the bear, and I thought, great advice.
That's my personal motto in the mornings for sure.
There's medieval house name generator. Fantasy noble house name generator. I think that would
generator. Work for a lot of households actually as well. Do you know what I mean? Like irritate not the bear, because the bear is the dad. You know, the thing is, like, you have to read beyond these house names. And I had one more for you actually, which I thought was really succinct and like just really, really like just good. Like it's I repay, and I was like, that sounds like it's obviously at first glance that doesn't sound scary.
You think, all right,
when you think about it,
so they're financially solvent and or reliable.
That's what they sound like. They're reliable, but also there's this revenge there. There's this "don't fuck with me" attitude.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I think it's weird that how many houses. The gist of the mottos from what you're telling us is, look, we're not threatening you. But if you fuck with us, we will destroy you. And I think it's interesting that that's the attitude. Obviously, very defensive.
It is.
You know, if you met someone and you were like, "Hi, I'm Sips. Oh, hi, I'm Ted. By the way, I will avenge upon you sevenfold any harm that befalls me." And you're like, "Okay, you know, wasn't threatening you. Yeah, I'm just saying that if you fuck with me, I will level you. I will destroy you. You will be reduced to atoms." So anyway, you were saying it's impossible.
I was playing Crusader Kings 3 as well, and renaming my dynasty and house name and motto and stuff. And I found the best thing to do for a motto, maybe this is what they did back in the day as well, was use excerpts from songs. So one of my mottos was, "Don't go chasing waterfalls." I thought that was pretty good. And another one of mine was, "My heart will go on," because I thought that would have been a pretty good one as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Shit. Yeah. That's a good one. I think having a heart on the banner, like not a heart shape, but like an actual shape, you know, like a stylized actual.
My next one I think is going to be my neck, my back, lick my pussy and my crack, because I think that's a good motto as well.
I've been carefully renaming everything to around the egg theme.
Yeah.
So I always make my ruler bold. All my kids' names have the word egg inserted into them. And for instance, when we were in charge of Sweden, we became Sweet Egg. the Kingdom of Sweet Egg. Wessex was Wessegg.
Sweet egg.
And we renamed it Dorset.
I don't tend to rename counties or
It's very clever.
You've got it.
empire. Like if I create a custom empire, sometimes I'll name it something weird. But house name, I always make Pennywhacker, who's like
Of course.
my fictional character that I like to use for all sorts of stuff. I like to RP as him as well.
That means a lot of different things.
And the last game I played, we had a guy named Rory was donating and saying, "Can you please name somebody after me?" So I named a child Rory. And Rory went on to be, we had Rory the Fourth as a king. And then Emperor Rory went through to Emperor Rory the Fifth.
Wow.
Do not vex the lion. That's what his thing could be.
The rule was every time we had our first
Rory, because he's Rory. Very good.
Firstborn son would be named Rory, and oftentimes made it through to inherit fully. And then
Rory does sound like the name of a toy lion, doesn't it?
Rory, yes.
And then it would be other sons would be named like Peter, so for Peter Pennywhacker, and daughters would be named Penny for Penny.
What is Pennywhacker's motto?
Well, it could be anything. Like
look after the pennies, and the pounds will look after themselves.
Look after the pennies, and the whacking will look after itself.
All my bitches pop your pussy like this, and things like that. Just like it's whatever motto suits them at the time, sort of thing. It's just whatever.
It's such a great game to stream.
Yeah.
I think because it's unlike any other game. Like everybody that's played CK3 still enjoys watching it because the story is different every time. Like RimWorld and other games like that. It's got such an emergent story, and random shit will happen. Like we were playing last night. We did a 6-player multiplayer game, which was great fun. And someone declared war on me for part of Mercia.
Right.
And I thought it was Mercia in England, which, sometimes as Sweden you end up with chunks of it. I didn't even invade. You just get bits of it randomly. But I suddenly had a little tiny bit of Spain, the sheikdom of Mercia. And I was like,
yes.
What? It's like, how did this happen? It's just funny when you're playing a larger
Your vassals
country.
just go off and
they go do shit.
Well, and normally they just press their own claims. So if you have a vassal that's started off in your kingdom as like a guest or something like that, sometimes they just come into your realm with like some weird ass claim in some foreign land. They'll press it, get it. And then
or sometimes they'll marry someone and then end up accidentally inheriting a random bit of shit. I've done that a bunch of times.
It's funny.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
it's nice to spread your seed out there.
It is,
because you never know what's going to come back to you later on.
I've been playing it a lot recently, and I've done a bunch of different starts. I've started as a count and built my way up. Started as a duke and built my way up. So like being a vassal of having a liege or whatever. And I've done independent, started as an independent count, started as an independent duke where you can, sort of thing. And it's different, right? When you're independent, you feel like you really have to survive, right? Like because everybody is out to just bully you.
We talked about this last week, and it's so interesting how the system that they had in place, this feudal system of counts and dukes, and the way that it inherited led to this kind of odd behavior of people where they behaved in a certain way and acted a certain way because they were sort of pulled into it by the system that was built up.
Yeah.
It ended up with these civil wars and fractured, constantly things were fracturing and forming back together. And that just created this constant war, really, between people trying to claim something that they would, having a weak claim or a strong claim. It was so vague, that people could just be like, I got a claim to this bit because I'm the Duke of this bit, and it's like
I had a really good one. I was playing. I was trying to form the Holy Roman Empire. So I started off as Wien, the Dutch of the Duchy of Vienna, I guess, but like the comfortable way of spelling it for me. I can't even pronounce that word. But so anyway, I created Austria. I had the Kingdom of Austria. And then I had my rulers, I had my dynasty, everything was in place or whatever. And I had a son and a daughter. The son was set to inherit, and the daughter would have been next in line. But stupidly, I married the daughter off for an alliance, but not matrilineally, right? So she went off to Byzantium, married in there. I had a really good alliance with them. They were my biggest neighbor or whatever. And it was off the back of that marriage. And then my son died. So she became the heir. And then I died shortly after that, and she took over. But she was still married to the emperor.
Oh, good Lord.
And it was matrilineal. So she was the end of the dynasty. She was the end of the road, basically. I desperately had to scramble around and try to create another member of my dynasty. So I had to hunt around and find a fellow dynasty member, have an affair with him, to have a child, okay? Which I did. I was like 43 years old at the time, so it was like pretty close to like the cutoff point for women in the game to have children. I had a daughter named Margaret, who became the sole like heir of the entire dynasty.
Oh, you're like hanging on by a
thread. Yeah. So
it's weird how you need to. It's weird how the family name is something which is.
It becomes very important.
She went off, and she wasn't married. She must have become a love interest or a lover of somebody else or whatever, and got pregnant. Okay, this is leading up to me being in my like early 60s, so I was about to die, and then all of Austria was going to be handed down to her. And if not her, then it would just go right back into my husband, the emperor's lineage, right? So she gets pregnant and has a child. And the moment she has a child from somebody outside the dynasty, she is not part of the dynasty anymore. And then about a year later, I died, and it was game over. That was it.
Right.
Oh.
So after all that, it was done. It was such a weird journey.
It's nice to like have a journey, though. That's the thing. Because there isn't like a fixed thing. You don't have to build the Eiffel Tower or something.
No. That was like the most interesting playthrough I've had in like 100 odd hours of playing this game so far.
Talking of dukes, Duke Leto Atreides and his son Paul Atreides, the Duke's concubine Jessica. The Dune trailer.
I haven't seen this yet.
Very excited. It looks like a really good.
It looks like an actual movie.
Well, I was talking about this on stream last night. I am a big fan of Dune. Like, it was one of the first really sort of big books that I read. And fell in love with, in that it's like such an iconic sci-fi novel.
It really is very iconic. That's exactly the word for it. Yeah,
and it's just so many of the concepts that it put forward were so good.
That would be House Atreides' motto.
Sand, yes. And then I was like, there was rumors that there was going to be a new Dune movie, and this guy was going to direct it, that guy was going to direct it, and I was like, yeah. And then when they said Denis Villeneuve was going to do it, like, he's an amazing director. He's brilliant. Like, Arrival was just beautiful. I loved the new Blade Runner. I was really excited, but I thought, what if it goes like the other ones and just falls through? And then I started to see the pre-production stuff, and I saw who they'd cast, and then I was seeing the trailer, and I am extremely excited. I cannot wait. It looks like they've done a really, really good job. So I'm
House
very
egg would be poached, scrambled, or fried.
Yes,
that would be.
If we should crack, we shall fight back. Yeah, that would be. It would be something like.
Or we do not crack.
Sunny side up. That would be our
sunny side up. Sorry, no, Dune is exciting. I'm excited for it as well. There's I think they're scared to release movies because of the pandemic, right?
Yes,
because they don't think they're scared to. It's because the cinemas are still sort of closed, and they're scared to like put them out on demand or whatever. So they're sort of backing up like popular movies at the moment. It feels like.
I mean, I went to see Tenet. I went to see that a couple of weeks ago.
What did you think? Was it all right?
I don't think it was great. I thought it was okay.
Wow.
It certainly wasn't.
An okay movie released at a bad time. That's a shame.
It honestly was. It was a interesting idea, but I just feel like the execution was a little bit ham-fisted. I don't know. It didn't feel like when I compare it to Interstellar, which is probably my favorite Nolan movie, because it was just so good. It was just like everything about Interstellar felt exciting, and I loved all the little details.
It put you into the world really well.
It really did, and just little details like the robots were really good. The cinematography was unbelievably good. The music was so iconic, and I like the word iconic today, obviously, but it was like everybody knows the Interstellar music. It was just a perfect film. I think it was absolutely wonderful, regardless of criticism about science wasn't. It's a fucking movie. It was good. Tenet was a little bit weird, and the sort of big action sequences didn't feel very, very good. The backwards stuff, not to give anything away, but there's some backwards stuff, just kind of feels a bit flat. There were some wonderful moments.
I mean, you see that in the trailers, people doing stuff backwards, and it's like, how does that fucking work?
They never really explain it. And it's just kind of like, I don't understand why that's a thing or how that would work. So it is a bit odd. It's good though. I think that the performances are very good. There are some very cool scenes and moments in it. Overall, I would say I enjoyed watching it, but it's certainly not one that I would rush to see again. Would be how I would put it. Whereas Inception, I really enjoyed. Now I've enjoyed watching that multiple times. This felt like they tried to squeeze. There's so much complexity to the idea they're trying to get across. So many different characters and all the rest of it, and situations, and the setup is so complicated that there's actually a lot of scenes where there's just people delivering exposition. And the other problem was the audio mix, as it is on most Nolan movies, was fucking abysmal. I don't know what he's doing, but I read some theory that apparently one of the guys who works on Nolan movies says he likes to have the sound effects like super loud to sort of blast you into your seat and to sort of impress upon you that shit's happening. But then he doesn't want the dialogue to be too loud because he wants you to have to lean in and engage with the movie and sort of really pay attention. And I thought, that's not good when the exposition is like some guy mumbles something that explains the previous 2 hours of movie. And you're like, what the fuck did he say? Like, what? So it does feel a bit like they try to squeeze too much into something. It felt like there could have been another 2 hours to the movie and we still would have maybe just explained everything. But it wasn't that hard to understand.
I see that sometimes where you're watching an animation or like a thing and they've got too much story and it feels... You see it a couple of times on some Rick and Morty episodes where they're just trying to rush through it because they've got too much time.
If the plot is too complicated to summarize easily, your plot is probably too complicated. Like that's just the way it is. I mean, Inception was quite straightforward, really. It felt confusing the first time maybe you watched it because, like a lot of Nolan movies, you haven't really seen a plot like this before. The dream within a dream and all the rest of it. But it wasn't that complicated. Like The Prestige as well. I watched The Prestige the other day, just coincidentally.
Great movie.
Great movie.
Yeah.
But the plot to it is again, you understand it. It doesn't need exposition. It doesn't need it.
And there's plenty of time for them to fuck around and stuff on the sides as well. Yeah,
and even Interstellar, there is some exposition in Interstellar, but it's not... It feels like it makes sense because the exposition is delivered as in one character who doesn't know what's happening is having something explained to them by another for a reason. Like the meeting where Coop he accidentally bumps into NASA's secret base and they explain what's happening to him. It makes sense that they're explaining it to him there. So even though it's exposition, it's at least told from one character who knows something to another character who doesn't, and you understand why that needs to be explained on screen. Sometimes in Tenet, I feel like it's two people explaining what's happening and you think, these guys probably know. Like it just feels a bit weird. It feels a bit strange. And there's some other things that are hinted at that are quite cool, but overall I'd say a middling film. Anyway, you're right. This film came out in the middle of lockdown. The day after it came out, I went to the cinema to see it, and there were like 8 of us in the theater. So normally I would have expected it to be absolutely rammed, but people are just not going out, understandably. So yeah, a film like Dune.
I think a lot of people don't even realize the cinemas are open.
Yeah, no, I think that might be a part of it.
I think you guys are going back to like limited public meetings and stuff like that next week, right? In England, isn't it?
No, it's we're down to 6 people.
Can't have gatherings of more than 6 people.
I don't know why 6.
But it's getting worse again.
This is my problem with a lot of this stuff is they're going from 30 to 6.
Yeah.
Why 6? Why not 4? Why not 8? Why not 10? What's the science behind that? Why 6?
Well, but they always have to pitch these. They're always thought through by some think tank, right? It's like the 5 a day thing. They actually, the scientists were like, yeah, okay, people should eat 8 a day, but if we say that's too many, no one's ever going to do it. It's going to be impossible. So we should say something that's actually a doable. So let's say 5.
8 a
not
day.
6. No, 5.
Fuck
the science says 8. But we're going to tell people
different pieces of
I don't
fruit or
eat
vegetable.
8 of anything a day.
Not different. 8 portions of fruit or vegetables.
That's so much, though.
Not even fruit.
That's
Fruit's not
What's a
sugar.
portion?
A portion is like, I don't know,
like 1 banana.
50 grams, 75 grams. But then again, I had a banana this morning. It was like the size of a finger.
One piece
I had one
of
the other
fruit.
day that was like the size of my dick. It was like massive.
Wow, so
really
even smaller.
Even smaller than the first one. Jeez.
So
Boom!
back into Crusader Kings.
Not Crusader Kings again. All it turns into
I just want to talk about.
I threw a 3 and he
talk
threw a
about,
2, and I need to throw a 4 and he threw an 8.
I as much as I'm enjoying Crusader Kings, and I have been playing it a lot and enjoying it, I'm getting to the point where
you're burned out.
It's not so much that I'm burned out. I'm starting to get annoyed with certain mechanics in the game. that I feel like.
Well, I completely agree.
I don't want to like complain about it too much because I do it enough on stream. But
I've just been reading so much about the history of the sort of period and how little I know. And in fact, I don't really like playing as a lot of these countries like Bavaria or Bohemia, because I know nothing about the history of that country or what language they speak, like what their culture was like. You know, I don't know anything about Byzantium and the sort of Eastern Roman Empire and any of the history of that. So I've started listening to this podcast called the History of Byzantium, which has been going for about 10 years. And honestly, like it's on like 200 episodes. But they have a recent one about one of these Crusader events, the Siege of Antioch,
right,
which was a really cool story. The actual podcast, I tried to go back and start at the beginning, which I couldn't do because it was terribly boring. And in the middle, it was again like unbreakably dense.
Yeah,
with history, and it's just so much history. Like the Crusades, just hundreds of battles, each of them with a battle report. Each of them with like their own sort of unique spin that happened over such a long period of time that, you know, you'd have a king who was a leper. There was a leper king who went into battle on a stretcher covered in bandages. I mean, what a guy.
He didn't though. That's the thing. There's a lot of this stuff is sort of like, it's exaggerated, right? To make it sound better throughout like the ages or whatever, because there's no way that you can actually, like they didn't find his stretcher after the fact or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like a lot of it, I think, is just made up.
I mean, he was like the fourth king. He was Baldwin the fourth or fifth or whatever, and he ruled. He was like the fourth king or fifth or 10th king of Jerusalem. So they held Jerusalem for a long time, and they had this sort of Crusader kingdom out there. And they've got pretty good documentation on what they did when they were out there.
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing to read all this stuff. Like some of these characters from history were so interesting and colourful. Like we remember Richard the Lionheart, right? It's like this favourable character who came in on like the Third Crusade and was actually competent for the first time. It feels like all of these sort of era battles, they either had. They lost for two reasons, right? One was that they were overconfident.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were like, they just assumed that the enemy were useless and just charged in blindly or started looting before the battle was over. or they got surprised, because that happened all the fucking time. Like half the battles they lost because they were surprised and and someone charged them, or charged them back when they were asleep or whatever.
Yeah.
But then the other reason they lose battles and sieges and castles is that they fall out with each other. They're like they're greedy, right? And so they're like, oh, I should be the count of Jourdan or whatever, and they bicker. And so it's like one of the, if you have someone who is A, has scouts, B, doesn't just charge any old idiot, and C, doesn't have like constant arguments with his allies, then they basically conquer like half the fucking world, it feels like.
Yeah.
Do you reckon it was made like that was it back in the day? There wasn't, I mean, no one was going to nuke each other. They all had pretty much the same technology, more or less. Swords, horses, bows, spears, shields, armor. And it was just like, who could keep their shit together long enough would win the war.
That really is, because often
if you
these
fell
battles
out or did anything stupid, you lost.
As soon as the front line broke, that army broke. Do you know what I mean? Like that felt like the thing, right? Like you could have these huge battles with 20,000 men against each other, and they wouldn't kill 10,000 of each other. You know, 1,001 guys would die, and then they'd break, and the other guys would lose 500 guys, and that would be the victory. And then those 10,000 would dissipate back into the countryside where they
fights weren't all or nothing. Like they had to bear in mind, like, hang on a second, we need to be able to fight again. Like we're not going to just lose everybody on this river crossing or whatever sort of thing.
Yeah, or they could just they were just scared, or the people could see the tide of battle turning. They're like, okay, it looks like we're losing this battle. We might as well retreat now. And it was like, it was almost like that first. It was almost like a bluff. You could just win a battle with a bluff.
They had to use the horns for that one.
Oh.
3 horn blasts for a retreat. Like, can you imagine? Imagine that's your fucking life. You're a soldier in a medieval army, like,
just waiting for
was that 3 blasts, or was it 2? I can't hear.
Let's run away.
I'm deaf because somebody keeps hammering my helmet with a sword. Like it's just to be the worst.
It would be rough.
But hearing like some of these exploits, and also how awful some of the Crusaders were.
Oh my God.
They would, compared to like the sort of Muslim caliphs and sheiks at the time. Often the Crusaders were the worst people who did all these atrocities.
Yeah.
They would. I mean, even Richard the Lionheart, he had like 3,000 Muslim prisoners, and he was waiting to swap them with the Christian ones from Saladin, right? And so Saladin had like 2,000 Christian prisoners. He had 3,000 Muslim prisoners. They agreed a deal, and Richard was like, Saladin's taking too long, and he chopped all of their heads off. And so Saladin chopped all the heads off the Crusaders, the Christian ones.
In the name of God.
Like absolute madness. They made this agreement, but one of them was late. Can you imagine if I turned up 10 minutes to this podcast and you just chopped Sips' head off?
Just dismantled the Yogscast completely.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've liquidated the company.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny, like to hear these stories and just see what people did. Like sometimes the Crusaders were so fucking like hardcore in their Christian beliefs and stuff, and they just believed that people that Christ would save them, that they ended up in these terrible situations with no food and water.
Yeah. Well, this is why we're actively canceling all of them in 2020.
They went cannibal on one place.
Yeah,
and
deserve it.
ate all the people in there.
Yeah, there was a lot of.
ridiculous.
Don't worry, God will give us some food in a bit, because obviously we're doing the right thing,
Right.
and there's just
But
no
could,
food.
Could you imagine you've got your Crusader army and you've finally taken this castle, there's no food, and you're like, I'm going to have to chop up some people and eat them. Can you look in your Bible, Hugh of Blois or whatever, and see if you can see anything about cannibalism? Thou shalt not eat the heathen. Is that in there? Because we're really hungry.
Oh, nope, checked it, can't find it. Chow
Can't
down,
find anything
gentlemen.
about cannibalism. We checked with the bishop. He looks really hungry as well.
Yeah, the
So-
bishop's like, yeah, it's good. Yep, we're good to go. Let's go. Yeah, cooking.
I think part of being a crusader is knowing when God's eyes are closed or he's gone to sleep, so that you can get away with some things like on the
really
sly.
is.
Yeah.
And some of these Crusader
You have
kings
that
were just
insight.
the biggest arseholes. So what was it? There was this big Crusader battle, and they captured all these Crusader nobles, and Saladin was there with them. And he passed one of them, Guy, who was the king of Jerusalem at the time. He passed him, or Guy maybe, some water, which was the Muslim way to say, oh, I'm going to spare you.
Right.
And so Guy passed the water to this other guy who was Raymond, who was an arsehole. He was like one of the evil kings who'd been just breaking truces and being a dick. And Saladin was like, no, I didn't give the water to you, and he killed him on the spot.
Everybody loves Raymond.
So Raymond fucking was just dead.
You know
straight
what?
off.
You know what also surprises me is looting was just like how you got troops to fight a lot of the time. Like that was a lot of the motivation for people to go to war and stuff was looting, and even like even in the Napoleonic Wars, there was a lot of looting, and they were like, "Well done, lads, you've taken the town. I'll give you 2 hours to loot."
That was
and
it.
And they go like, "Way!" And they just loot.
Sometimes the Crusades didn't even make it to the Holy Land. They would get halfway, find a really rich town, and just loot that.
Just incredible.
And go home again.
Yeah.
It was so funny because it was just these. They thought we'd gone far enough and we'd traveled
Yeah, fuck
3
it.
months.
This lot are
Well,
rich.
you got with maps and stuff back then, you're walking long enough, you might think, hang on, our destination is like, I don't know, whatever, Rome. But then you just happen up across a town that kind of looks like Rome, and you just think, we're in Rome, I guess. Like,
That'll do.
Let's sack it. It must have happened all the time. Like, I think there would have been a lot of misinformation back then.
A lot of it's so funny to read though, because these Crusaders were on their way to somewhere, and they'd stop off at like a town or a castle or even an island. I think one time they stopped off at like I don't know, I think it was Crete or something like that, or Cyprus. And the local ruler is some sort of arsehole to them, is like, please leave, or doesn't give them access to the market. So they're like, okay, let's kill all of you. And they just kill all the people, take the town over, loot the whole place, burn it to the ground.
Yeah.
And then fuck off. And it's like, what did you expect would happen?
You guys ever think, though, as well, like these really, really ancient sort of accounts that are written by people that you just sort of, naturally you just sort of accept as like, oh yeah, okay, that's exactly what happened. But like, I don't know, sometimes I think, what if in 200 years from now we came back and we read an account of something that supposedly happened or did happen or whatever, we read through it and we're like, wow, that must be exactly what it's like. But then you rewind 200 years to the person writing that account, and they're like, I don't know, like the fucking stapler guy from Office Space, or like the log lady from Twin Peaks who has like a fucking jam jar collection and is just like a bit eccentric and weird and maybe not the most like trustworthy person with like factual information or whatever. You know what I mean? Like a lot of this stuff could have just been written by anybody. And
You're
also
right.
under like possibly stress to like not upset a king or a lord or something at the time.
I think you do have to look at the characters of these people who wrote it. But it tends to be, there's a lot of people who wrote things, and there's a lot of different sources. Some things don't have
I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the stapler guy, by the way, or the log lady. I'm just saying, like, we trust.
Would you trust them?
We trust some of these accounts
the
without ever, like, thinking about it, really. We just think because it's old, it must be true and trustworthy. But, like,
I think you're right. And it does need to be a good story, or else people wouldn't have passed it on, right?
Yeah. So like some of it you have to, I think you just have to take with a pinch of salt, really. Like it's.
But there is a lot of history, a lot of different sources. The monks, because it was this religious thing, the monks tended to write stuff down, and so a lot of the priests who accompanied the Crusades and stuff were quite good at keeping track of what happened.
Yeah.
There's a few interesting different sort of sources, but obviously you're right. They always want to make themselves look good in those sources.
Yeah, understandably as well. But like, I don't know. It feels like people just sort of take it as hard fact when maybe it wasn't really. There's a lot of
good historians who talk about this stuff, because there was this thing called the Swedish Crusade where the Swedish Christian kings went to Finland, and apparently it's just mythological. There's no sources for it. It probably didn't happen, but it became this like popular story that because everyone was doing different crusades. So with the Reconquista trying to take back Spain and all of the different sort of crusades that happened, there were tons of. There's so much history and so much stuff that I knew and still know. Fuck all about.
It's like the local legend. When I was growing up, there was a local legend in my neighborhood where this guy, he was older than us, and he was just known for doing things that were sort of like ahead of his time. Like he was the first person that any of us knew who ever like smoked a cigarette. We were young at the time. Okay. Right. But the local legend was that he'd somehow gotten hold of like 20 Playboy magazines and he stashed them in the woods. Okay.
And a common place to stash magazines.
Exactly.
That was how we used to get our
porn. And but there's no basis for this whatsoever. I don't even think he ever said that he did this. It was assumed.
I had a theory about this. Actually,
it was assumed that he did it.
As an interruption, I reckon that you can't throw away porn in your bin because people will see it.
Right.
And so you have to dump it somewhere. And the woods are where people dump bodies.
Right.
They also dump like a sofa sometimes or porn. I reckon that the porn in the woods thing is just because people wanted to find a way to get rid of it without putting it in their normal household trash.
So a couple of times we'd be walking through the woods because it was like a shortcut for us to get, to somebody's house or whatever. And we would actually stop and just have like a, quick 2-minute look around just to see like, oh, I wonder if he stored the Playboys here or whatever. And you know what I mean? It was enough. It was a complete myth. But we believed it, or just wanted to believe it, or thought it was funny enough to believe, or whatever. And so like it just became this thing. Like every once in a while, we would just stop and just have a quick look around to see if we could find these like Playboy magazines, which just didn't exist. Like there's no way this guy had 20 Playboy magazines.
Well, we used to see porn a lot in Bournemouth. It was probably just a couple of perverts that did it, I guess. But everybody knows that this is a thing that happens. It wasn't dumped. It was up for display. Like pages and pictures were taken out and put up on branches. Like it was like a gallery.
Like wanted posters.
It was like a pop-up gallery.
Oh man. I wish I would have grown up
Nature's
there. We never
gallery.
Had anything like that.
It was a gallery of porn. Like it was almost like, for your delectation, humble wanderer, welcome to the pop-up porn gallery. Please do look at the artifacts that I have displayed for you here, and this disgusting cloth that you might wonder what that was for. Like that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me think of something. Because I was thinking of trees. I played golf last weekend.
Oh, nice.
This is because of me and Sips played PGA 2K12 or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. That reminds me. Well, I want to try that NBA one now too. There's a Korean.
Yeah, that
one.
looks fancy.
That looks really good. I'm gonna get it right now.
I actually
don't
booked
take
lessons.
games too lightly, guys, or else you're going to be fucking flying jets around and fucking killing Muslims.
No,
what are you
listen. I've
talking
been
about?
watching that The Last Dance documentary on Netflix about the Bulls and Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and all those guys, and it's made me want to play some basketball. I think it'd be pretty fun.
But I played the golf and I thought, you know what, this actually looks like it would be quite fun to play for real. Like I don't normally, because I'm not in a great shape. I'm not the kind of guy who can go and play football, Sunday league football, and run around for 90 minutes. So I'd die. So I thought golf is easy in terms of your athleticism, and it's all about technique, and you could just practice, and maybe I'd get good enough to enjoy a bit of golf. So I went to these lessons. The other people on the lesson, it was me and 5 women who were, I'd say, in their 50s. So I thought, okay, I'm obviously in the right place. I'm basically taking on the lifestyle of a middle-aged woman. I'm happy with that. And I went for my lessons, and I thought it was going to be an hour of them telling us how to hold the club and swing it. We wouldn't get to hit any balls. And I thought, wow, it's week 1. But 10 minutes in, they were like, right, let's go hit some balls. And we were just hitting the ball for like 45, 50 minutes. It was great.
Nice.
It was fantastic. It was so much fun. It is hard to get the technique right, but I'd say half of
Were you just a driving range?
No, it was like a practice range.
Man, I love the driving range.
The driving range, I'm going to go to that at the end of my lessons, hopefully, when I've gotten better at swinging the club consistently. Yeah. There's a driving range not far from me, a proper one with like a little booth, like they always have on TV. You have the little area, you've got your little tee-off area, you just hit the ball and it shows you how far you've gone. Fantastic. So this was just like a miniature practice hole. So there's a little green with a flag in it. You got the build-up bit, and then there's like an AstroTurf bit that you all line up on and hit the ball. And they give you this plastic tube that's got about 25 golf balls in it. And when you've finished, everybody's finished hitting their golf balls, you just take the tube and you go and you just plonk the end of the tube on the golf ball, and it's sort of, there's a catch that catches it. So you just go punk, 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 and you just pick them all up with this tube. You don't have to bend over and pick them up. Which I was like, this is an old person invention that I can appreciate. And once you've collected them all up, we go back and we hit them again. It was great fun. So earlier on, I had the tendency is that as you're hitting the ball, you want to look and see where it's going. So you lift your head up to see the ball coming off the end of the club. But if that just makes you hook it and slice it. So you've got to sort of keep your eye on the ball, keep your shoulder over it, follow through. And some of the shots, I'm telling you, it was like getting the perfect timing on the PGA game. It was like the ball goes arrow straight, comes down right where you want it to. It was fantastic. Very satisfying when you hit it just right. It makes a great noise. And I thought, this is actually something I'm looking forward to doing again. Oh my
God, this is it. You've tipped over.
I have.
You've tipped over to an old man.
I'm going to become a golf bore.
This is it. This is the seesaw of life. You're on the other side now, dude.
I know. But this is the weird thing, is as soon as I started talking about playing golf, loads of people that I know, young guys, were like, oh yeah, I play golf. It's great. We should play golf sometime. And I was like, wow, it's like a secret that all these people have.
I'm not ready.
Yeah, they don't tell you that golf is a thing that people do. Yeah.
I want to be young. I want to live.
But
I want to live.
Some of these guys, they're like 21, 22. 21, 22, they're playing golf.
I think it's like giving up. I think playing golf is giving up.
I thought that too, Lewis. But when I went to the course, where like it was at a full golf course where I went to have the lessons, they had an area. I would say half the people there were younger than me. There was a couple of teenagers doing around together. There was a family, like mum and dad, 3 kids. They were all playing. There were old people there for sure, but there were a lot of younger people. And the golf pro who took our lessons, who was a very impressive man, he said that the previous day they'd had 80 kids come through in groups of 10 for golf lessons, because it's like a big push from UK golf to get more people into golf. And it's an easy thing to do in lockdown. You're naturally socially distanced. You're on a golf course.
Yeah,
you only go around in small groups and everything.
Yeah.
So they're teaching these kids golf. He said all these kids were like amazing. He was like, they're so elastic that their swing is like perfect. They listen very intently and they all just get on with it. And he was like, it was amazing. So he said all these kids are like just fantastic golfers.
That's all things that I am not. I'm not elastic. I don't listen.
Am I?
I'm not flexible.
Am I? I'm none of those things. But it's once you start hitting the ball, you want to hit it properly. And it's just minor adjustments. Like it really is.
Does your back hurt or anything? Or your arm hurt?
I had a tiny bit of pain in my lower back. There was just stiffness because these are muscles I hadn't used ever. Like having to twist one way and then the other and everything. Not a thing I ever do. The most I have to do is sit down.
You should definitely warm up.
I think it is more important to warm down than warm up, I think, is the advice these days. But
I think if I learned anything from watching the Let's Dance documentary, is the best way to play golf is to gamble with your friends while you're doing it. I think that's how you have.
I would 100% do
the most fun.
But honestly, it was really fun. I recommend it.
Nice.
And it was a tenner an hour. I've got 4 lessons. It was 40 quid. So £10 for an hour lessons. That's pretty sweet.
That's not bad, actually.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really somebody's time, right? It's pretty good.
Anyway, sorry.
Real nice.
I'm just distracted because I'm interested. I think Dune is linked to this very much, right? It's a very Crusader. Sorry, I'm still thinking about Dune after you mentioned, because I watched the trailer as well and I'm excited for it.
I mean, the whole point of Dune is the Crusades, right? It's essentially a crusade.
It feels very Crusade.
It is. But it's kind of a reverse crusade.
I don't want to do any spoilers, but it's definitely, it's like a reverse crusade, but
in the book, it's heavily implied.
Well, a jihad, I guess, would be a reverse crusade.
It is a jihad. Like, in fact, if you read the backstory, like in the indices and everything about Dune, there was like the Butlerian Jihad and everything, I think, was about basically tearing down machines, which is why there aren't super advanced computers. You have human computers, the mentats, who are like, they do the job of computers by being able to focus their brains and essentially perform very difficult calculations very quickly, because they banned computers and robots. I think that was what the Butlerian Jihad was about. A Dune super fan out there will correct me, I'm sure. Anyway,
maybe they need a Butlerian Jihad, so they do a jihad on Butlins.
Butlins. Yeah, I'd get behind that.
Maybe they should think about doing one of those.
They've already wearing the red uniforms.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But yeah, it is. There is kind of a crusade thing going on, because obviously Paul Atreides wants to liberate the Fremen people and everything. But one of the things that they've hinted at is that the Missionaria Protectiva, which is like the Bene Gesserit mission to seed all these worlds out there with the myth of the Kwisatz Haderach, which is obviously what Paul is, the sort of the chosen one who can travel. His mind can do all kinds of crazy shit, and he's like basically a demigod.
It's a jump forward in the road, the idea.
Yeah,
of it.
But the weird thing is that they seeded this idea so that if they'd ever need it, they could just, like, if they crash landed on a hostile world or whatever, they were stuck somewhere, they could just call on parts of the prophecy and sort of fulfill bits of it intentionally, and everyone would be like, oh my god, they're the chosen ones, and they could get out of jail free. I thought that was quite an interesting idea.
There's some really cool ideas in it. It was really his magnum opus.
Yeah.
The rest of the books were not as hot.
I mean, doesn't Paul turn into a sandworm in later books?
I think it goes a bit weird.
I'm done with it.
When you have success, people are like, oh, I need to hear more. I need more. And sometimes that's like, so almost certainly the sequels are not as good.
Yeah,
rarely are book sequels as good.
Agreed. Apart from, dare I say it, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Fellowship of the Ring, closely followed by
Two Towers, which is excellent,
followed
and The Return
by
of the King.
Exactly.
Excellent
all
movies.
All very good.
Excellent books. Excellent books.
Yeah,
You're right.
The Hobbit.
And The Hobbit was written after those, right? Wasn't it?
No, it doesn't.
The
Hobbit
Hobbit was the
first.
first one, wasn't it? But the Hobbit movies weren't as well received, were they? People didn't
they were
them.
garbage.
What was so bad about them?
A lot.
Oh, right.
An awful lot.
They were just
they were
terrible.
awful.
Yeah.
There's I think her name is Lindsay Ellis. She's a YouTuber. She does a really good analysis of the Hobbit movies and why they suck.
Right.
The problem with The Hobbit was a children's book that wasn't very good, and it was quite small. It was like a Mr. Men book.
It shouldn't have been a trilogy at all. And they basically, everything that they wanted to put in, Peter Jackson just put in. But there was also a lot of problems
it was like,
with...
imagine they made the first 3 Harry Potter films out of the last 3, the 3 darkest ones, and then they went back and made the super kid-friendly one. Like, I don't know, like, it felt weird. Because the fans were so expecting more Lord of the Rings, and I think if you watch her video, it's a really good, because I feel like when people really dissect a film that you didn't like when I think about the prequel trilogy of Star Wars movies, which I hated, I knew I hated them and they were awful, but I didn't have the full list of terrible things. And Red Letter Media did a series of videos on the prequels and why they are abysmal. Well, that's what made them famous.
Exactly.
Really, wasn't it?
But that analysis, there were things you didn't even notice. You knew they were bad, and you knew at the time you thought this film sucks, but you couldn't quite put your finger on why. And when he shows it to you back to back to back, all the awful things, you're like, God, yeah, that was awful. It's just like comically bad. I mean, that scene in the factory where they're like jumping over It's like a Mario level. It's literally like a level from Mario. I can't even remember which film it was in or why they did it. But they were doing something where they're dodging bits of metal and machinery and stamping and stuff. And it made me think about that bit in Galaxy Quest where they go into the tunnels, the service tunnels, and there's like chompers there. And they're like, why are these here? And they're like, well, they were in an episode. So the aliens built the ship according to the TV series. I thought, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I like that stuff. Sorry, we interrupted you again, Sips.
That's all right.
You're getting squashed today under our chat.
I can't even remember what I was saying. What was I?
What did
I say?
I make notes as I go on this podcast so I can come back.
Oh,
to
wow,
right.
that's good. I watched the new series of The Boys.
Oh yeah, that's I haven't even watched series 1 of that. I know it's
very good.
I know it's very good.
good.
I've seen the first episode and I liked it. I just haven't gotten around to getting back to it. You know, I need to.
I mean, there's a few shows like that. I mean, I know that oddly enough, have you heard of the show True Blood?
Yeah,
it was a it was awful. It was a dreadful
I watched
show.
a couple of seasons.
I think it was a little bit like Star Wars. The prequels, like I watched them not realizing why they were so awful.
It's dreadful. It's awful.
Yeah.
I don't know. The first couple of seasons were pretty good. It started to get kind of
Sukia.
Yeah, it started to get it got much sillier later on. But Sukia.
Yeah, everyone.
I think I liked like 2 or 3 seasons of it though.
There are 7 seasons.
Yeah, that's too many seasons for that.
So Mrs. F was a diehard True Blood fan,
right?
But then just kind of, for whatever reason, stopped watching. You know what it's like. Something else comes along.
Yeah, absolutely. I do it all the time.
So she wanted to finish it. So she's just finished all 7 seasons. And I've been trying to get her to watch Barry, which I think is a really good show. If you haven't seen Barry, check it out. It's an HBO show.
What is it? How do you spell it?
Is that the one? Is
Barry?
Barry the one with the guy that has like is it like Australian or something?
No, it's Bill Hader.
Yeah.
Who you might know from Saturday Night Live. He's a very funny guy.
Yes.
So he's an assassin. He's come back from Afghanistan. He was a soldier. He's come back, and now he's an assassin. He works with the guy, oddly enough, who was I was told I could have my radio playing twice a day. And that's my
the stapler guy from Office Space.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, him.
He is Barry's sort of assassin agent. I was told that I could have my radio. It's in a considerate volume. That
I
guy.
recognize him. I can see his face now.
So he plays a completely different character in this.
Yeah, he's
like
a really good actor.
maniac.
That guy actually.
I've
seen him in lots of different roles, and he's very good.
I'm trying to think what else
I'm going to watch
in.
Barry now. This looks great. So I always use Rating Graph,
right?
Ratinggraph.com, and you could see True Blood on there. Like the first couple of seasons, great. But after that,
it's terrible.
It takes a real swan
it's like
dive.
Lost was like that. I loved Lost at first. I thought that was what a great idea for a show. I loved like the setting and stuff. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
And then after about 2 or 3 seasons, I just thought, what the fuck am I watching?
Well, the thing about Lost was it had 25 episodes per season. They really had to. That was a lot.
Did it really?
Fucking video.
I stopped watching it when they found the hatch and they saw like a video feed of some dude with an eye patch. And I thought, okay, I'm
Oh man, the hatch stuff was actually some of the best stuff when they were down
it was
in the
great.
hatch.
Yeah, I thought it was really gripping.
I think the lead up to the hatch was really good because nobody knew what it was. Everybody was scared of it and stuff. But then, and then even when they got into it and they had to they were pressing the button because they weren't sure what was going to happen and stuff was pretty cool. But I don't know. I started losing interest. Like the weird smoke and everything. It was just too fucking. It was
for me. It
much.
got bad when you suddenly had the guy in white and the guy in black, and it was pretty clear that they were the devil and God, or an angel and a demon at the very least. At that point, I was like, "This is kind of boring now." And the constant flashbacks.
There were a few very cool episodes.
There were
a few absolute stinks.
I think the show suffered as well because they had that huge writer's strike. Remember?
Yeah.
And then when it came back and everybody was back to work or whatever.
I don't think that was the problem with Lost.
I think
was that they didn't know where they were going.
No idea.
But what I'm trying to say is they had that big writer's strike, and then when people finally came back and they started writing and shooting, a lot of the original cast, one woman was arrested and she was no longer able to be on the show. A couple of people broke contract and were like, I don't want to do this anymore. So they had to just react to it by writing them out suddenly, like Michael and Walt.
That was certainly one part.
Michael just left the show And they were just
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? So they just had to do that whole thing where he just finds a raft and leaves the island because there was just literally nothing else they could write for him. Yeah.
But the worst,
Yeah.
you know what the worst thing they did was that people on the Lost sort of forums guessed the ending to the show and what the gist of it was. So they fucking rewrote the ending to the show. That was a big part of it, is that they built to an ending, and then because some idiots guessed it, they changed it.
I feel like that's so naive.
Oh, was
to
that
do.
Lost? Did that happen in Lost as well?
Yes!
Oh, shit.
It didn't happen with certain things. Certain TV shows like got better as they went on. Like Breaking Bad was a great example of a show where they knew they would go where they
knew
were
where they were
with
going.
it.
Yes.
And it had this ending in place by early development, and so like they ended it with on a high, and I think that is so important, for good memories. Like people remember Breaking Bad, great. What was the other thing that was like a Better Call Saul? I'm not. Better Call Saul is fucking hard work, by the way.
Oh, I love it.
If you're gonna watch it, it's great, but it's like super depressing.
It's great though. That's what's so good about it. I love the pacing in it. It's not like it's just like a comfy sort of immersion thing for me. I like it. I just like the.
It does feel like more of that Breaking Bad world.
Yeah.
But
After I'd finished Breaking Bad and everyone was like, you've got to watch Better Call Saul, I was like, I am Breaking Bad outed. Like, I am done. I can't stand the quiet, the faint dripping of an air conditioner in the background. They're obviously in the middle of a fucking desert.
Oh, I love
it's
all
just
that.
super quiet, super low key.
Yeah.
I can't do it again. I did it for however many seasons Breaking Bad was, and that was me tapped out.
Yeah, no,
done.
I haven't watched the latest season of Better Call Saul, but I do like it. I will watch it. Like I like the whole
Breaking
story.
Bad was fantastic.
Great,
though.
yeah.
What a show.
Yeah.
But yeah, the boys. I know Tom Clark said to me, "Oh, you should try the comics. It's even more fucked up." And I went to Forbidden Planet and I bought like 5 volumes of collected The Boys, and
really,
it's fucking bonkers. Like it's almost unreadable. Like I Preacher, the TV show. I heard that series 1 was kind of slow and boring, so I just didn't bother watching it. But Mrs. F watched the whole thing. And when I spoke to her about it afterwards, I like, did they put in the bit with... Because one of the things they find is that they've been basically interbreeding, the Pope and all these guys have been interbreeding Jesus for 2,000 years.
What?
So they've got the son of, etc., Jesus, in this underground bunker in a mountain somewhere in Colorado. And he's insane. He just throws shit into the walls. He's like bonkers. He's lost his mind because he's so inbred. And I thought... There's no way they'd put that in a TV show. Mrs. was like, oh yeah, he's in there. I was like, what? Because the Preacher is so nuts and there's so many bizarre things that happen. And I thought, there's no way that's going to be in there. And it is. And I thought The Boys, when I read the Boys comic, there's no way. I mean, it's like even worse than Preacher for that kind of stuff. I mean, there's so much sex in it and so many orgies and just disgusting stuff. But there's things like in The Boys comics, very early on, the boys have injected themselves with the serum to become Supermen and fight the Supes. And that isn't in the TV show at all. And there's all kinds of other characters that just don't pop up. It's interesting. But the TV show veers absolutely wildly away from the comics. And it's much more straightforward. And therefore watchable, because the comic is insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad they didn't stay that close. I mean, there are certainly aspects of it that they could put into later episodes, but there's just way too much gross stuff.
It's more like Steelheart, which is Brandon Sanderson's thing about this evil Superman who's called Steelheart, and he's like in a post-apocalyptic world basically, because this giving random people superpowers has fucking made some of them complete assholes. And so they have this evil Superman ruling the world, and ordinary people have to try and take him down. And it's kind of this interesting idea. But yeah, it definitely it's like, I think it's like a trilogy. I think it's called the Reckoning trilogy. So I recommend it. I also recommend Brandon Sanderson if you want to read more of The Boys but not the same.
Is this The Reckoners?
Yeah, The Reckoners.
A trilogy of young adult superhero novels.
Uh-oh.
Publisher, Random House Children's Books.
No,
Here he goes again, trying to get us in on the young
I
adult.
really enjoyed it. It didn't feel like reading a.
Why are you reading kids' books all the time? What's wrong with you? You're a grown man.
Oh my god! I recommend it. It's good.
He loves kids' books.
This is the infantilization of the West that we've been warned about since the early 90s. And here you are. Everybody's into anime and they're reading young adult novels.
Yeah.
Grow up! Grow the fuck up.
I think you'll like it, P-Flack.
You're a goddamn adult. I wanted to read. You should read a newspaper, and that's it.
All right, well,
I have a subscription to Reader's Digest and National Geographic because I'm an adult and I only read those publications.
I'll allow them. And Time Magazine.
You've read the Sanderson novels, right? The good ones, the Stormlight Archive, right?
No, I haven't. I wasn't able to get into Sanderson's stuff. I don't know. Maybe I just like
The Way of Kings is a great book.
I know. I have them. I just like I said, I tried reading them and I just could not get into them. I maybe need to just give them another go or whatever. I don't know. I
think it might be the next. If they were to make Game of Thrones, then again, like,
so he's planned
good. The Way of Kings
10 books.
would be the way to do it. Ooh,
and
so
the paperbacks have 1,258 pages.
Yeah.
What are you talking
400
about?
These books. Oathbringer clocks it in a whopping.
What's the big thing with Sanderson? He's got like
451,000 words.
that makes him that makes people like him more than other like fantasy writers. He's got like rules for magic or something. He's got like magic rules.
Yeah, I've talked about it on here before, but yeah, he's just good.
Right.
He knows what he's doing. He writes a lot, and the Stormlight Archive is kind of his flagship series. That is the one which is the good one.
He's my age.
He's done a few other things. Like I recommend if you wanted to start off, Elantris is a good book.
Elantris.
He completed he did the final books. He was selected by the author Robert Jordan's widow to complete the final books in The Wheel of Time. So he was the guy who finished off The Wheel of Time after Robert Jordan died. Another series of books I have no intention of reading.
Well, The Wheel of Time is actually a very good classic fantasy series.
Right, here are the names of the main characters. Rand al'Thor.
Yes.
Matrim Kothon.
Yes.
Perrin Ibera. Egwene Alvir. Nineve Almyra.
He's literally a farm boy who becomes a magic wizard genius swordsman mastermind.
Too many apostrophes. Tar Varen and the main protagonist.
It's a very classic kind of
the dragon reborn, known as Kar Akarn, or he who comes with the dawn to the Aiel. Yeah, I'm out. I'm done. Tapping out. I'm out.
Yeah,
Pass.
It's
too fantasy. Too ludicrous.
It's very high fantasy.
High fantasy.
Yeah, but
I switch
very
off
popular
when
with certain people.
I switch off when they use like the Elven language for too much. Like the Larinir with like the apostrophes.
10 apostrophes.
Yeah,
different
and
letters.
I just think,
it looks like Finnish. Yeah.
Life is too short. I just fucking give me like I'll just go watch Goodfellas or something that.
Do you ever think it's ironic that here we are mocking young adult novels that Lewis reads, and then I'm immediately just tapping out of a book?
This isn't a young adult novel.
I'm going to forget the names.
The old Wheel of Time is pretty.
Wheel of Time was a slog as well. I could not do it.
It's definitely not like
too much.
I think anything that isn't horrible can be young adult these days.
So here's my problem with a lot of these books is that it's such a. You look at them, it's such a. It's going to be months of your life reading this thing, unless you literally sit and pour through it. So I'd have to spend way more time every day just reading, and I'd be like, I could be playing Dota or building up. I could be doing that. Like the lure of the internet.
This is the eternal choice that people have to make in their life. Most people, P-Flax, have to go to work and stuff. They don't have the choice of whether to read or fucking watch a movie.
I know. I'm literally thinking
most people don't have the choice. They have a limited amount of time, and so I would recommend. But if they like certain things, then if you want, I'm really into crusading stuff, and I always like reading military fiction and stuff about Agincourt and stuff like this.
Bravo 20, which actually improves with every read.
I might just I just find myself gravitating more towards sort of history, like nonfiction now. I like reading biographies.
Oh, fucking hell. What's happening? We're getting old.
Well, it happens.
We're going to be playing with train sets in a minute.
You're not 40 yet, are you, Lewis?
No.
Just yelling the kids to get off my lawn. I feel like I'm rapidly approaching.
How old is Lulu?
I'm 37. Yeah.
Right. So the reason you're obsessed with the fact that everything you do has to not reflect that you're getting old is because you haven't hit 40 yet. Once you hit 40, you don't give a fuck, dude.
Yeah. It's like a juggernaut fucking legging it towards me. And
listen.
Also, I know I've been reading all this history, and also I just know that like people don't live much longer than 40. They're not made for it.
Of course they fucking
That's the best
do.
years. No one ever did nothing when they were over 40. That was
my parents
no.
are like 65, so this whole time they've just been chugging away in the background. They're
Look
still
how
going.
miserable they are.
No, they're fine.
They can't bend over and pick up their golf balls.
No.
They have to use a little tool for
They're
it.
fine.
Their hair's all
They're
gone.
still living it up.
You're just talking about me.
They're still
They're
reasonably
smelling flowers
healthy. They
and-
still like doing the same shit that they've always done. Like it's,
I know.
Like the thing is,
just make the most of your life, people.
Yeah,
If
sit
you're
and read
young.
a 2,000-page fantasy novel.
You're at the point now where your life won't really change like an awful lot, like until you die in like 60 years time or whatever. Like you're sort of like you've pretty much fully developed like the things that you like to do, the way that you want to live, your contentment, all that kind of stuff that you don't have when you're in your 20s, right? When you're in your 20s, you're just all over the damn place. You want to do one thing one day and then another thing the next day or whatever, and then you just sort of like, I don't know, you get into your like mid to late 30s and you're just like, yeah, I'm doing pretty much what like I want to be doing. Or
I'm playing video games for a
if
living.
you're not,
I'm not
then
going to complain.
I don't know what to say to you. But like I've for like probably like 10 years or so, I've just been like, yeah, I'm pretty fine with everything. Like it's not. There's been nothing like there's been no huge changes or anything. You know what I mean? Like it's just been smooth sailing, baby, which is nice.
I'm going to have to read Bravo 20.
It's an Alan Partridge joke. That's what he says. He says Bravo 20, which actually improves with every read. It was just when you were saying that you like reading about the Crusades and military stuff, it just reminded me of Alan Partridge. That's all. It was like an accidental.
I didn't realise
Partridge.
that was a reference.
That's all right.
Sorry. He's doing like a podcast.
Yeah, it's called From the Oast House, which I think is a brilliant name.
Saw it advertised somewhere.
It'll probably be quite funny. I was kind of worried the Partridge stuff was tapped out, but I do like Steve Coogan. I think
the most
he's
recent
brilliant.
season he did on the one where he had the talk show on.
I couldn't stand it.
He co-hosted like that the one show sort of thing.
Mid-Morning Matters. I think
Yeah. I thought that was hilarious.
Oh,
Man,
it was so uncomfortable.
Well,
it was so real.
it was uncomfortable, but that was part of why it was so funny as well, right? Like,
But I think if you recoil in natural horror at the cringe, if it's presented in too real a fashion,
yeah.
I think it's a very British thing.
Yes.
And I literally can't stand it.
I don't know. Go back and watch The Office and you'll get a lot of that as well.
Yeah,
It's
we have
impossible.
definitely spoken about this before. That
We've
cringe
talked about
comedy
that.
is either your thing or it's not.
I mean,
it's
one
not my
thing that Steve Coogan did, still doing with old Rob Brydon, is they go and do the trip, don't they?
Yes.
They've done about 4 or 5 seasons of it, and I think it's okay. I don't think it's like I wouldn't say it was good, but I think it's watchable.
Yeah,
and it's
it's
quite
the easy
interesting.
listening of comedy. I'd say it's got some chuckles in there, and they're just engaging people. Like it's fun to watch them. But I would say this: like every episode consists of them having a chat, Rob Brydon doing one of his voices, and then Steve Coogan doing one of his voices. Like the impressions seems to be a big part of it, and then them kind of not being very nice people and. Oddly, they have this weird friendship where they're like competing with each other constantly.
Yeah.
So it is kind of weird, but I'll confess I haven't watched the latest seasons of The Trip because it was just like you said. It was like it's all right.
It was all right.
It was just very all right.
So I think that's probably how I would define Alan Partridge as well. Like it's all right.
Oh, the series in the Travelodge. I can't remember which series that is a brilliant series. I love that series. But that was just him being a twat. Like it was just him being a horrible person, and the cringiness in it wasn't that bad because you had people on the show who were like making fun of him without him realizing, and you were kind of with those people. You know what I mean? Like you had a voice as the audience. I think Mid-Morning Matters was just watching awful people doing cringy stuff, and it was just so uncomfortable. I couldn't stand it.
The movie, did you see the Alan Partridge movie Alpha Pack?
Yeah, I love that.
I
as well.
Not very good.
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was really funny.
I thought it was watchable. Yeah. Wow. So Sips thought it was great. I thought it was okay to good, and Peter in fact hated it.
I didn't like it.
Wow. This is the Triforce podcast in a nutshell, right? That's all.
My
that's all I can
expectations were
handle.
so low, so it was like,
That's all I can
right.
handle.
That's fair.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody. We'll see you all next week.
okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.